Welcome to the Fishery FastLane Podcast. I'm joined by the Kingpin, Viv Shears, this time. Thank you, Viv, for coming along. Now, I always like to start these podcasts with getting a bit of backstory of where you've come from and how it all came to be. So I know last time I saw you at the Carp Society, there was a seminar where we spoke about sort of careers and the sort of story, the backstory, and I learned a lot that actually quite similarly to me, where you started off. You said you started off with dairy farming, was that right?
Yeah. So from a farming family, and we had a small holding. Dad was a dairyman on the local sort of big estate, and I never really fished as a youngster. But I always wanted to be a vet. That was always my plan. I was reasonably academic.
Big animals or little rabbits?
Big animals, yeah. So I did my work when I was at school. I did work experience with a vet that specialised in zoo animals and stuff like that. So, and he had caught some rare parrot disease while I was on placement with him. But and then unfortunately Dad passed away very young, when I was 11, 12, I think. And a friend of the family basically sort of to get me and my younger brother out of mum's hair while she was dealing with all that, he took us down to West Bay and we caught some sprats on the harbour there. And that was the start of fishing. I'd always been jumping in rivers, and I grew a British record minnow when I was like 10 in a water tank on the farm, and bullheads and stuff like that. But never ever thought about a career doing fishing. So I was match fishing primarily up until I was sort of 17, 18, and then didn't get the A-levels. Unfortunately missed out by one grade to go to veterinary college, and my world fell apart really, Ben. Because that's ever since I was probably 6. That was my plan, to be a vet. Went to my careers advisor, and they went, there's marine biology in Plymouth. So I went down there and got offered a place at Plymouth doing marine biology. But then someone mentioned this little agricultural college that we know very well, Sparsholt over in Hampshire. And it was a HND back then, but it was over 3 years. But part of it was you basically did a year's work experience split up into several blocks during the 3 years. And I like getting out and getting my hands dirty. And I said, freshwater is more my sort of thing. So so I went to Sparsholt. Very green, lived in the middle of nowhere. Winchester was pretty scary as a city, but it was great, and went from there. Really, never looked back.
But then, would you say your number one passion would have been, your first choice would have been to be a large animal vet?
That was always the plan, I suppose I don't look back with any regret now, but it's one mark on A-levels was the difference between where I could be and where I am now. Who knows? I think looking at life, really, the issue with being a vet is unless you can buy into a practice, then yes, it's good money, but it's not it's not earning your own money really as a sort of just a vet working with someone. So
where did you go after college, Viv? Is it?
So I did 3 years at Sparsholt, and then I went off to through a local employment agency. So I was living in Winchester sort of when I finished college. There was a 6-week contract with the Environment Agency in Hampshire. And basically I was cutting the adipose fin off of salmon parr, and we were microtagging them, and then releasing them into the rivers there. 6 weeks turned into 18 months, I think. So they rolled the contract on. So I did a lot of sort of video monitoring of salmon passes on the River Itchen and the test, doing stock evaluations and tracking. So we were racing around Hampshire at night with radio track salmon or radio tag salmon. One of the funniest evenings, one of the tags moved off the river, and we actually followed it to someone's freezer in his shed. So it's great fun. So I think it was 18 months with the Environment Agency, and then Sean Leonard, who was the boss at Sparsholt, the fish section, phoned and said, we've got a technician's role. So that was crikey, 96, 97. So I 97, yeah. So I graduated 95.
Right, not long afterwards, after graduating, you're back.
Yeah, as a technician, yeah.
Right.
And then I started doing a little bit of sort of practical lecturing, I suppose, so estate skills, things like that, and helping sort of out on nettings and stuff like that. And as a part of that, I ended up meeting Ian Welsh at RM. Well, it was Leisure Sport Angling then, or just become RMC Angling actually, after the name of the new parent company for the gravel company. And I jokingly said to Ian, I'd love to have a job here, like when I was a technician. So I think we were netting the Pads Lake at Yateley. And yeah, lo and behold, like about a year later, there was an advert like put out in the Angling Times, I think, and yeah, applied. I think he had about 2,000 applications. Really? You can imagine every angler that, like, under the sun, because at that time that was, well, it's still. It was the biggest angling portfolio of fisheries in the UK, and I think it's no one's succeeded that, I think, since. So it was a massive job, and went for that, and got that really. And
right.
That was me into fisheries then.
Okay. So how long did you spend at RMC?
5 years. So for the younger people listening to this, I'll go, it's like ancient history to them, isn't it, really? But 1999 until 2004. Right. So I was fisheries, basically fisheries manager. So I was called assistant angling manager. Right. But I basically ran the fisheries side of the sites. Okay. So netting, swim building, tree work, and what I was doing a lot of was netting other gravel pits that weren't fisheries, that RMC owned. Yeah. So we were moving fish into the fishing lakes. So huge portfolio of massively well-known carp fisheries, Yateley, Horton, Kingsmead, Raisbury, those sort of things. So very, very lucky, dream job pretty much as an angler.
For your 5 years at RMC, and you've gone back to Sparsholt after that?
Yeah, 2004. Went back, and Sean again sort of said, look, there's a job coming up, and that's one thing with this industry, as you know, Ben, it's all about who your contacts and stuff like that. Sean, I was sort of like, I don't know. It's I loved what I was doing with the fisheries, but the money was rubbish, and had my daughter. She was about to start school, so and the lure of 6 weeks holiday during the summer, I was like, wow. So and better money, and nice area to live in around Winchester. So moved back in 2004, full-time lecturing. With so basically there was sort of myself and Simon Scott. And we managed like the level 3 course of the A-level equivalent national diploma. Right. So I was first year tutor, and Simon was second year, and that's where VS sprung from, really.
Did you both come in at the same time, or had Simon?
No, Simon had been there. He started just as I started at RMC. Right. So we. Basically, Simon would bring the students up to work with me doing tree work, netting, which was great, because I didn't really have a team of staff. Well, no, I was the bottom of the ladder, really, plus some volunteers who were great, and they'd help out. But it was so Simon literally came up, and the friendship built from there. And then when I went back to Sparsholt, sat in the office, and we went, we should give this a go, really, because at the time there was very few carp suppliers around that were doing fish for the specimen market, or sold, like dedicated to doing specimen fish, really. The likes of Mark Simmons and Priory were doing a few, Fisher's Pond, but apart from that there wasn't a lot going on, and we just saw an opportunity, and we're both of us, like Simon's got a reputation for obviously his lecturing and his fishing, so he's quite well known. I'd been working in the fisheries industry, so I got to know a lot of people through that. Yeah. And so I suppose we had a head start, really, in terms of reputation. Right? So we started in early 2005. So got 20 years ago now, Ben. So
how does a business like that start? Is it just an opportunity to take on some ponds?
We'd been looking, and we found a little site over near Hazelmere, in Surrey. not ironically, not that far from Donald Leaney's original trout farm there. So about 6-8 miles down the road. And there was a family that owned, it was a little fishery, like a series of little, like online barrage ponds, I think probably totaling maybe 2 acres of water, something like that. And we got introduced to them and went over there and literally said, right, we want to farm fish rather than run it as a fishery, because they'd moved out from the city and they didn't like the idea of anglers on there. So, we convinced them to give it a go. And so we went in, sort of emptied the site out, disinfected it, limed the granny out of it, and then stocked it with a few fish. Originally we got some from Priory, and I had a few fish squirreled away in a couple of ponds elsewhere, and so we moved those in, and that was our first harvest was the winter of sort of 2005-06.
Right, so you're still at Sparsholt?
Yeah. So, myself and Simon stayed at Sparsholt. I think we were full time probably until about 2010, I think, something like that. 2010, 2011, and then we started to go part time. So the site in Hazelmere, we were only there a year for various reasons, but we outgrew the site literally in our first year. We thought we'd struggle to sell. I think we had like 200 fish or something like that, and literally was sold out in 5 minutes once we advertised them. And we were like, oh, we need some more room, and the site didn't allow it. It was sandy, it was on a slope, it was every reason not to build ponds, but they managed to build ponds there. But they had a massive spring, so it kept the water levels up, even though it was leaking out the banks as quickly as that. And the pH was a bit low and things like that. And so we ended up, I think it was April 2006. Someone introduced us to Richard and Mark Chandler down in Sussex, down near Petworth. And they had a little fish farm operating. They built some ponds with someone else in the industry. That hadn't gone to plan. Business partnerships don't always work, do they? And they invited us in just to do a consultancy, me and Simon. They wanted to give the fish farming or carp farming a go on their own. And they just built 2 lakes which were going to be day ticket fisheries. So we had a sort of walk round, had a chat with them, very much on the same page in terms of what needed to be done there. And we convinced them, we said, look, if you give us the farming ponds, so we had 1 reservoir and 14 little ponds, they're only not even 1/4 of an acre each. And we said, look, if we could have those, we'll strip them out, put some of our fish in that we had from the other site, give us a year. If it doesn't work, we'll walk away. But part of the deal was the 2 big lakes they built, 4 and a 2.5 acre one. We would help them set them up as fisheries and sort of promote them and things like that. So that was it. So we sourced them some fish. I got some big fish from a friend on the Isle of Wight. And we bought a load of C1s from Priory as well as before we were spawning. Put them into a 2.5. It was going to be a match lake, basically. Put them in there. And the cormorants came in at the end of the summer, decimated the whole lot. The big fish had done really well. But I think what happened, they were going to open the fishery the following spring. So they were going to leave it closed for a year. To let the fish grow and establish, and they were amazed how quickly the fish in the fish farm in the ponds had done. We put in C2s and they came out at 5-6 pound, C3s, and they were convinced we'd gone in at some stage and swapped the fish, because they'd never had fish grow at that rate, but we put them in the right density. You're a farmer, Ben, you know what it's all about. So we just put it in the right number of fish, fed them the right food, or the right amount of food and right quality. And they were gobsmacked, and they suddenly went, why do we want anglers on the site? So they went, do you want the 2 fishing lakes as well? So suddenly we went from 2 acres to 10 acres, and yeah, we never stopped building ponds after that, really.
Wow.
We went mad. Yeah.
What was the industry like back then? It seems to me, obviously, I guess 20 years ago, it seems to me like it's been almost an emerging market. Like you were perhaps positioned at the right time as things really grew.
Massively.
What did it look like when you started?
It's like I said, there weren't that many suppliers really. And it was sort of around the time sort of fishing forums like the RMC or CEMEX Angling forum was massive in terms of like it had like 150,000 people using it, and so the whole sort of social media sort of chat room type stuff was really emerging. And yeah, I think we just timed it absolutely right. We went in there and we were doing scaly fish, whereas a lot of the fish being produced at the time were plainer, faster growing ones from Fisher's Pond and stuff like that. And yeah, so it was a relatively easy market to crack. And yeah, for a good decade, like we were sold out by June, even before we started harvesting.
Okay. So what came first? Is it demand, do you think, or did you supply and then you found the sales?
I think the demand was there, but it was just having the option. Like we were a different option to the established routes, really, and the likes of Simo and Fisher's Pond, they were selling out very easily, like every year. So the demand was there, right? And I think that sort of early 2000s carp fishing really started to go up a gear in terms of like the more sort of day ticket sort of runs type waters and things like that.
What do you think it was driving that growth? Was it?
I think angling numbers. I think there was a lot of people coming into carp fishing. I think that's probably steadied now, but back then it was on a incremental climb, really. It was going up, and even when I was at RMC, between 99 and 2004, I think we went from like 30,000 members to like 50,000 members, and it was a massive sort of setup, and that was primarily all specimen fishing, really. We had a bit of river fishing as well, but that was big barbel, but it was predominantly carp, and I think that was the real boom period, that sort of late 90s to sort of 2010 probably. But I think it's still increasing slightly at the moment, but I think we're seeing a bit of a sort of like the older generation are perhaps going away from carp fishing, going river fishing now and enjoying that. So, but the saturation point, yes, we've had a couple of years recently, but we produce a huge amount of fish now, Ben. It's staggering how many fish we produce. And yeah, we've had a couple of years where we haven't sold everything, like pre-COVID, because we built so much on the farm. Like we were building, we went from 2 acres in 2005-06 to we've got 70 plus acres of water now. So yeah, we were adding 5 acres a year pretty much, right? So we were always building as soon as it dried up, on heavy clay, and as soon as we get the diggers on there, we were digging new ponds. So hence why sort of me and Simon really sort of 2015, the farm was big enough and profitable enough because we never borrowed a penny, to set up. We put money in ourselves, and we reinvested heavily for those first 10 years, really. And then, thankfully, there was enough in the pot at the end of every year that we could go, actually. So we both left Sparsholt in 2015. So 10 years now since we've been full time on the farm. So,
it must be a challenge when you're trying to scale a business which is very seasonal, as well as when you're digging ponds, you've got other fish to put in them, and then you've got the feed bill. And then
it was. And to be honest, the farm was never really at full capacity for several years. So it was probably 2017, 2018, where we slowed down on the building of ponds, and literally the year of COVID was the first year that the farm was at capacity, right? So all the ponds were at the levels we felt they should be. And of course, COVID hit, and like we were just like, oh my God, the world's going to end, isn't it, really? And we were dreading sales dropping through the floor because no one was fishing, so there was no money. But ironically, and of course, once everyone was let out of the house, everyone and their uncle and their granny went fishing, and fisheries were taking the same amount of money as they would do annually in 3 months, right? And the phone just melted, right? And so we managed, and there was 2-3 years there, and then year before last was a bit of a dip, right? I think the market. I think obviously finances are really tight the last few years, and I think people are changing the way they spend their money, like angling clubs and stuff like that. So they might be, well, and we've certainly seen people who are ordering fish later in the season, right? So whether they're holding off to see what they've got like the end of, like in the new year before the year end, because rents are going up and everything costs more, doesn't it? So, but that seems to be shifting back this year. Like pre-sales this year are really good. I haven't got a clue what's going to happen, Ben.
No.
I've been doing it 20 years and still haven't got a clue. So in terms of what sales are going to be like.
But I guess, was there anybody before you arrived, and I guess your USP is focused on your genetics and your strains.
Yes.
Was there anybody doing that then? Were they focusing on that, or was that new?
I suppose Fisher's Pond, really, and Priory, Ben Gratwick, when he was down there. They were... Ben was certainly looking at sort of genetics in terms of producing big fish, and I think Fisher's Pond stroke Simo, because that was a double act then when we started. John was not specifically breeding for it, but because he was breeding the biggest of each of, say, his 5-year-old fish each year, he was genetically engineering them to grow quickly and stuff like that. So, but as we all know with genetics, like if you gain in one trait, you can lose in others in terms of sort of body shape and scale patterns and stuff like that. So that was always our sort of, we wanted scaly fish or scalier fish that had pedigree, really. So we were very lucky we had access to some great bloodlines, and the Sutton fish, from when I was at RMC, and Simon had some leanies and we had some dinks and stuff like that. So we had quite a big pool to start with, and then initially we always used to do the spawning at Sparsholt with the students, as part of their sort of course, and then I think probably about 2008 2009 we sort of built the hatchery there, and we've been in-house ever since. So
I'm conscious that a lot of people that will watch this will have fisheries and want to know some of the questions that I want to ask. Can you tell a fish that's going to be a massive fish when it's coming through the farm?
No. You have an idea, Ben. You look at enough fish, same as I do, and you look at a fish and go, that's got the potential, but that is only one part of the jigsaw, really. I'll never forget, about 4 or 5 years ago, I had a customer phone me, and I think it was when we had our first 50-pounder that we'd sold, so it was probably seven years ago now. We'd sold as a C3, so it didn't even make the C4 grade, right? And we sold it, and that was it had grown to £50 quicker than anything else we'd sold bigger. But I had a customer saw that and he went, "Oh, I had fish at the same time," because we'd like to put that on social media, say it was stocked in 2010 or whenever it was. And he went, "I had that batch of fish and mine are only £25." Right. And I was like, and the venues were chalk and cheese. One was an old riverbed, like dammed off, very silty. And the fish have done well. I think up to like mid-30s now, but so they've done very well for the environment. So we can only do our part in terms of the genetics, and it's then down to the fishery. And well, ironically, literally last night, I was a friend of mine, Lee, that is the fishery manager at Dartford and District. Someone pinged me a message, right, and went, "The big one's been out of a lake down in Kent, like one of the club waters," right, and at £65.11, right? And I was like, right. So I instantly I was on the phone to Lee. He went, yep, confirmed it. Yeah, and I've literally just seen the picture this morning. So it's been 60. It was 63 is its biggest weight prior to that. But yeah, it's mind blowing. The pictures will be out soon. So
What do you say to those people that suggest that you keep the best fish for the next growing season? You sell the bottom of the grade of the crop.
Absolutely we do, right? But we grade sheerly on size, right? And looks to a certain extent like we want to try and get some scaly fish through to the bigger year classes because they're always popular. But it's just because it's the biggest fish on the farm, right, at a certain age, doesn't mean to say it's going to be the biggest fish in 10, 15 years down the road by any means. Like, I don't know how many 50-pounders we've got out there now. 30, 40, 50-pounders, I think. And I would bet that less than 10% of those, we sold those as £15 or above. Most of the C3s and C4s that have gone into, and that's why we always sort of, well, I feel like I'm preaching at people at times, but buying fish younger, right? C3, C4, C5s, right, top end, is the way to go, right? Especially if you've got a decent lake, you've got an existing stock, right? You're wasting a lot of money buying big fish when you've already got 20s and 30s in the lake. Why buy more? Just buy them younger. They settle in better. They get on with it. And I've stocked venues with 10-pounders and 20-pounders. We do grow bigger fish, Ben. Right? We've got to because the demand's there, up to sort of upper 20s, scraper 30s. But I've stocked lakes with 10-pounders and 20-pounders on the same day. Within 3 years, the 10-pounders are bigger than the 20-pounders. They go in, they settle in. They're like young, virile. They want to become big fish. Right? If they go in at the bottom of the pecking order, they go, right, I'm going to eat everything that moves, comes out the spod, right, or whatever. So,
do you think there is a hierarchy element to when you stock fish out that like, I guess it would be with dogs and stuff, you'll have bullies, and with other animals you have bullies of the pack and
absolutely. On the farm it's very evident because they're stocked relatively heavily. Like our fry, when they were born early May this year, they were all the same size, man. They all went out as eyelashes, and in one given pond we've got 30,000-40,000 in a pond. We'll have at the moment, so sort of middle of September, we'll have fish of 7-8 inches, right, at the top end, right, and the bottom end are 1.5 inches, right. So, and again, that's just right. I'm a relatively big chap, right. If I was fighting a 5-stone, right, sort of 4-year-old for food, I'm going to win, right, and that's what happens in our ponds, and it's something that even in very low stock fisheries, right, I've seen it. Like Raisbury was a classic, right? When I was managing it, Mary was the British record. Then unfortunately Mary passed away, and there was like the rest of the A team, right? There's like Malins and Cluster, very famous fish that lots of people wanted to catch. As soon as Mary went, right, and you think there was probably 20 fish in 120 acres, right? As soon as Mary went, Cluster had been 40 to 43, 44 pound, like for a decade, probably, right? As soon as Mary went, it went to 48 pound the following year. So that became the queen of the pond, like Mary was the king. But so I think, and that's really hard to fathom. I cannot get my head around how a fish can control 120 acres, but it did in some shape or form. I don't know, but like I saw it on one fishery down in Hampshire when I was fishing, had a big mirror and a big mid-30 common. I put a load of bait out, snuck out, one night, put 25 kilos of pellet on a spot, and the two big fish sat on it for 3 days, never ate a bloody pellet, but they wouldn't let anything else eat it. Right. So without a doubt, Ben, there is dominance to, and I've seen it, and on so many fisheries where you lose a big fish, or the king of the pond, queen of the pond, and literally another one goes, boom, right, I'm now in charge, and comes through the ranks. So.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because with advising other fisheries that you want you don't want them to get bogged down with the nitty gritty like this when there's actually stuff which turns the dial a lot more than worrying about the hierarchy.
I've been in fisheries for 30 plus years now, and it's not about looking after the fish, Ben.
No.
Right, I've learned that very quickly. If you look after the lake, the margins, the habitat, if you get that right, the fish will do what you want them to do. Right? If you don't get it right, the fish ain't ever going to do right as you hope. And that's always the problem that we see. Customers go, right, the fish they're doing £7 in Mates Lake down the road, but they're only doing £5 or £3 or £2.
Is that doing you out of sales? Being honest, at that to people.
No,
it might do somewhere else.
It might do, Ben. But that's the way me and Simon always run the business. Like, we don't sugarcoat anything. Like the first question a lot of people ask when they come to us is, how much are they going to grow a year? And I went, I don't know. I said, like this year I've had fish that we stocked in November, so we're not 10 months down the road. They've done £12. And there's several fish that have done £12 in a year. But that was a brand new 3-acre lake, like virgin ponds, like fresh. It's just ridiculous. I think the average, we put 60 fish in there. The average is £7.5, £8.
Yeah.
Right, across that, I think the worst one is £6.
Yeah.
Right, which is insane. Right, but if you put fish in a great environment, then with the genetics and like we're now doing lots of crosses in terms of so we're getting the best of both worlds. We're trying to produce scalier fish that will grow. We're seeing some phenomenal growth rates.
Does it come to a point there where you think, okay, it's exciting, but it comes maybe at a cost to the longevity?
Massive, and some of those places like people are supplementary feeding lakes and stuff like that. So yes, I'm a believer in live fast, die young, right, in terms of that. So I think if nowadays we've got to appreciate that the fish we are stocking under a huge amount of pressure compared to what they were 30, 40 years ago. Like the red mar fish lived until they were 70, 80 years, 70 years old, I think, something like that. But they weren't fished for, really. No. Like they Chris Yates with a quill and a bit of sweet corn.
Yeah,
like, wasn't exactly linear on a weekend when there's 400 anglers there, was it?
And that is a huge element, I think, of having the fish achieve their potential. Unfortunately, as anglers are.
Anglers are a stress, right?
Yeah.
And as fishery owners, we've got to accept that. And
weigh it up a bit.
The pressure now is to be open all the time. Like spawning is just so hit and miss. Like with the seasons now, like we had fish spawning middle of April or early April this year, and they finished the end of August. So you can't like trying to close a fishery. Right? So I think people have got to be very aware of that, and it's something that I think £3, £4, £5, right? And if we get 25 to 35 years out of a fish that is going into a fishery that is now fished 365 days a year, right? But it's interesting. I've seen a lot of syndicates now that we deal with. They're bringing back the old close season, just to give the fish a break. Because the funniest thing with COVID, not that there was much funny during COVID, but I had loads of fisheries so I'm going, my God, the fish are all over the place. They're behaving really weirdly. There's something wrong. I'm going, no, they're just being carp. Because you've taken away the angling pressure. Right? And on the farm, the fish and we don't do it anymore. We used to go around the farm. That was one of my sort of jobs during the summer when we were feeding them. Was I'd go and catch half a dozen on rod and line out of each pond, just see how they're getting on. Like end of July, August, get a feel for how well they'd grow. The pond wouldn't feed for 24, 36 hours, right? Just by catching 3 fish out of 500, put the whole pond off the feeding spots. Right? And you think, fishing in fisheries are being put under. It's a low level stress. Right? Let's be honest about it. But it changed their behaviour, and anything that changes your behaviour is a stress.
And that's probably when fishery management mistakes are made. Maybe they see a decline in increase in angling, but decline in captures. And they say, the solution might be more fish, which potentially not the right option.
No. And like I've certainly spoken to customers and gone, look, I don't think you need anything. Like remove the snags, because when the fish are under pressure, they'll go and hide somewhere. A lot of fisheries are against that because they want snags. It's like, well, and I've seen it with fisheries that I ran at RMC. You would have the whole population of a lake, and it was an 8-acre lake, and there's 500 fish in there.
Yeah.
They lived in 2 snags. Cut the 2 snags out, capture rates went through the roof. The fish were growing like mad because they were moving. And we just made sure there was good marginal habitat for them, that get rid of all the timber work and stuff like that. So
there's always some pushback though, isn't there, when you advise stuff like that.
About death threats, Ben, about cutting down trees and things like that. So I think the worst one I had was when, just before I left RMC, we drained the North Lake at Yateley, where Basil was, probably one of the most famous carp ever. And there was a bush called Basil's Bush, right, which had a book named after it, and ridiculously famous tree. Right? And unfortunately, Basil died. A few years before we drained it down, we were refreshing the lake. Basically, we were going to start again because the syndicate fell apart because of one fish. Right? As soon as that went, the membership just disappeared. And I don't know, probably not my wisest move ever, but I went, well, Basil's gone, right? So Basil's Bush went as well as part of the rejuvenation of the lake. Blimey, I didn't quite realise, but things move forward, and I'm a great one for history, massively, but things have to move forward, and fisheries nowadays are very different creatures to what I was managing 20 years ago, and the climate's changing. Right? You and I are both seeing things in our day-to-day life, like oxygen problems in November. What is going on there? And we've never had, normally end of September, October, you turn the aerators off, you wouldn't worry about oxygen. Right? But now, I think as a fish farmer, fishery manager, you have to be on the ball 12 months of the year, which is stressful. Right?
What does, just coming out of 2025, the driest summer we've had, how does that what does that mean for fish farming?
Well, it was.
Have they done well? Would they have done very well?
Yes, I think. One of the main problems for us is lack of water. Right? Obviously, we had a very, very dry February. Right? The driest on record round us. So our ponds weren't brim full because we're runoff fed, so it's ditches. Right? So we've got one that has a river or stream running into it that runs all year, but the rest of them are winter fed, basically. So once it stops raining, we don't have any more water. So we're stuck with the water in the pond. We didn't quite get the ponds brim full in February, because normally April, it'll stop raining. So then, of course, we've just had the most ridiculous warm summer or hot summer with a lot of wind. I think that's the killer as well, because the evaporation, it just just takes it away. During the summer, very often I live on the farm, and you wake up and it's misty for 4 o'clock in the morning over the ponds. But it wasn't all summer because the wind was blowing it away. So that's taking the water, so a little bit would settle back down as the sun came up. But the water temperature on average has been 2 degrees higher, I'd say, in the ponds, and in a carp's world, 2 degrees is a massive difference. So we were approaching the optimum, sort of 20, 25, 28 degrees for a carp to grow. We were seeing 24, 25 on a lot of the ponds for a good part of the summer. So even though we've actually fed slightly less because we had less water, so we've got to be very careful of the water quality, the conversion rate, I think, the fish look phenomenal. So I'm not going to say it's a record year yet, but it could be, because when we had the hot summer 2 years ago, we're in a similar boat, and we fed very little food relatively compared to what we could have eaten, and the fish did very well. So
I'm Ben Pinniger, and I'm your podcast host. For those of you that don't know me, my business is called BP Milling, where I specialise in producing plant-based pellets for fisheries that break down fast. I farm my own carp entirely on my pellets, and you can see me doing exactly that over on my BP Milling YouTube channel. So if you're enjoying the Fishery FastLane content, and you haven't discovered the BP Milling YouTube channel, then there is loads more content like this where we deep dive on the science behind running fisheries, how to run fisheries in a healthy way, and how I farm my carp. There's loads of video over there of me doing exactly that. If you're interested in finding out a little bit more about my pellets, we have an online shop where you can purchase the feeds directly, delivered to you in bulk or in single bag quantities at www.bpmilling.co.uk. Do you think then, if the first year of a carp's life, or first growing summer of a fry, if they hatch it in May, if that's a summer like we've just had, do you think this year class is one to watch in the future? Do you think that's the start of a good trajectory?
No, I think it's just a case of they'll be a bit bigger. So
so it's not going to influence the potential, do you think?
No, I don't think so. Like the genetics is the key, and ultimately, like I said, it's where they end up. That's going to be the determining factor in terms of whether those fish are going to be monsters. But again, it's all relative. And that's what we try and stress to our customers, is that everyone goes, I want to grow 50 pounders. It's like there's a lot of 50s around, but if you look at them, there's relatively few lakes, but they've grown a lot of 50 pounders. Somewhere like Wellington Country Park had 15, 20 50s, I think, in its peak, but that was one lake, and things like that. So it's so I always stress to customers that what you've got to do is maximise the growth in your situation. So it might be if I can get them to £40, that's brilliant. But again, going back to it's all about good management, Ben. And we do our bit in terms of good genetics, and they can do the rest.
Do you notice though, is there any clients that where your fish have done very, very well, is there any characteristics of the lakes do you see any patterns in places that they go where they generally do better? Like clay over like gravel?
No, we've well, where the 65s come from, that's a gravel pit. There's another 60 and a couple of 58, 59s there in gravel pits. But then you look at someone like Rich Wilby's place over at Airfields. We stocked that 2010, something like that. Brand new site. And again, new pond syndrome, 4.5 acres. Almost put too many fish in there. I said to Rich, I think he put too many in, but it was going to be a day ticket initially. And I was chatting to Andy, his sidekick, the other day, and it's now got 350s and 48 40s in 4. It's just ridiculous. 20 years ago when I was on RMC, you count the number of 50s on one hand. Well,
that's what prompted my question when that's Rich Wilby's and Blackthorn. I thought perhaps they're similar.
Blackthorn's been a steadier progression, but like Rich Wilby's is just see so much bait, and the lake in Kent, we stocked them as C3, so that 65 was stocked as a 10 pounder, as a C4, so it didn't make the C5 grade. So again, it doesn't show that the biggest ones on the farms are going to be the monsters. When we stopped the lake in Kent, no one really fished it because they weren't big enough, because the club had other better carp waters then, so the club were feeding them. Suddenly the fish started hitting 20 pounds, and then a few more members started, and then all of a sudden more bait started going in, and those fish just took off. Like that fish was doing £3 a year for the first 3 years of its life, and then literally the following year it did like 11, then it did 8, 9, and it's but it is boilies. The lads go down there and put in 15 kilos of boilies for a session. Big pit, lots of it's got 400 fish in it, and so they're eating it, and it's got already got another 20 40s in there as well. No, I think you can grow big fish anywhere. Well, that's probably a bit too broad, I suspect. But anywhere from a clay pond to a gravel pit. I think gravel pits historically have got the pedigree, because they're very good at growing specimen fish, because nothing survives. Recruitment of all the species in a gravel pit is limited, whereas a clay pond, roach, other like the carp will spawn and survive. So there's that added competition.
Yeah.
So I suppose the perfect model would be a gravel pit to grow big fish ultimately, but it's certainly doable in like 1 acre, 2 acre, 3-4 acre ponds.
Yeah. Do you see yourselves as, obviously, there's more fish farmers running fisheries now and developing fisheries? Do you see that on the cards ever for VS Fisheries?
We keep thinking about it.
Yeah.
It makes sense, doesn't it, Ben, really?
Yeah.
Right. We have a lot of fish, right? But then me and Simon are getting younger. Perhaps for the guys that will start managing the business for us in the future, perhaps that's something, well, perhaps we'll do that, then we'll leave, like, because they can deal with all the anglers and stuff like that. It's the problem we have in Sussex is there's not a lot of, if we're going to do it, we want to do it properly, like do it big style. So if we were based in the Cotswolds, almost certainly by now we'd have got hold of some lakes some pits in the Cotswolds, and do, I'm not saying like a linear copy or something like that, but like somewhere with a big number of fish on a day ticket, because that's the way to make money, without a doubt. But who knows? In Sussex, probably it might be somewhere that we do like a little exclusive booking lake or something like that. So
you wouldn't ever look at your ponds and go, "Oh, do you know what? This can look, if the demand wasn't there anymore." And it's to put
absolutely. Like until that happens, Ben, and it happens consistently, because like I said, last year or last winter we sold every fish, like literally down to a 2-inch fish I'd left in the bottom of the tank that's got through the net. Someone would phone me and go, "Yeah, I'll buy that." It was mad. I've never had a year like it. Whereas the year before we had to put some fish back. Right. So it's so hard to predict what's happening. Right. And there's still, amazingly, there's still a lot of fisheries being built.
Yeah.
Right? This year probably 10% of our customers are new customers with new lakes.
Right.
Okay. So obviously, but that's spreading anglers across. The pot of anglers is probably similar.
Yeah.
So if that continues, I like passing our fish on for someone else and watch them like grow and come back. That's the biggest buzz for us when we see those big. Like, see that picture of 65. It's a mental fish as well. Like, it's just awesome. Right? That's the buzz for us. Right? And like, I don't have to deal with the anglers. So, they're a lovely bunch, but on a day-to-day basis,
you've dealt with students for too long, haven't you?
Dealt with students, and the trouble as well, Ben, we have 6-7 months of the year we are flat out. It's a massive operation to harvest the farm, and then we have a few weeks. Then Simon gets into spawning mode. I end up doing year end, right, for the business and stuff like that. Then you suddenly go, well, if we open a fishery, that's going to start in March, really picking up as the weather improves, and that's us. Then it'll be 12 months of the year flat out. Yeah, I'm too old, Ben. Too old. Leave it to you youngsters.
I don't know that. Right. With VS Fisheries being quite focused on strains and stuff, do you have to keep replacing brood stock and finding new waters?
No, I think we're pretty happy. Yes, in the first few years we brought in, we obviously had a few bloodlines to start with, and then we've added obviously the Harrow fish, which very famous fishery in West London that produced massive fish quietly back in the 80s, 90s. We got those 16 years ago, so the 65 was one of that first offspring from that cross. So we've got those. We've brought in a couple of other bloodlines from sort of safe sources, because that's for us, biosecurity is massive. If we ever brought anything onto the farm, we're out of business, Ben. And that's same as any fishery with disease and stuff like that. You've got to be really careful of that, and we're uber paranoid. So anything, we've got quarantine ponds are isolated and things like that. So we've got quite a big pot of 6 or 7 different bloodlines, and what we have been doing is crossing those and doing different crosses, and then we might use a first generation cross, so something like a Harrow Sutton will cross with a Leany Dink or like something like that. So we're continually mixing them, but what with any animal, if you inbreed them too much, you get issues, right? We've seen it with lots of like Alsatians, classic, right? With its hips and stuff like that. So what we try and do is always produce first generation crosses. So we'll have, say, a Leany and a Harrow, right, and we'll keep those bloodlines pure, right, and then we'll cross those each year, right?
Right.
And so that first generation, generally, you get sort of hybrid vigor, so that should be better than its two parents, right? Or carry the traits over, right? But then if you then cross those with a relative strain, right, again, then actually the vigor becomes less and less, right? So the more, so if you've got one bloodline, right, on your farm, and you're breeding from those all the time, right, and you're breeding brothers and sisters, right, things like that, then potentially it takes a long time, 10 generations, so that can be 25, 30 years. You will notice, right, a lot of traits coming out that probably aren't favourable, right? Whether it's deformities or the fish look very uniform, right? Because they all want to regress back to commons ultimately, even if you cross pure mirrors, right? If you did that time and time again with siblings, they will regress back to being commons, right? It'll take us our lifetime to do it, but so we always try and keep the distinct bloodlines. So occasionally we'll do a pure bloodline spawning, and just keep a few of those, right, as brood stock to have fresh ones coming through.
Do you have much natural fry recruitment in the ponds?
Massive, right? Yeah, because basically our ponds are drained down every year. We lime them, so there's very little in terms of predation right, in there. Yes, we get dragonfly larvae, and there's natural food in the big lakes, right? But right, we have one pond. We've got one pond at the moment. Probably got 250,000 2 to 3 inch fish in there at the moment. Right. But the cormorants turn up. They might get like a costia or like a skin parasite, and that. Then all of a sudden the seagulls turn up, and so we might have 10, 15, 20,000 in a pond.
So right, why wouldn't you bring them through? Is that because
we do if they do okay? And like last year they were tiny. They were an inch and a half long. Whereas that's why we use the hatchery every year, because if we relied on natural spawning last year, they'd have been tiny. Right? Like whereas our fry in managed ponds were 6-7 inches, right? The natural fry were coming out, massive survival, right? We had millions and millions of them, but they were an inch long, right? So that would stay with them for the rest of their life. They'd never catch up, because yes, we get them. Right, if we put a 6-inch fish out, we'd expect that to be 2.5 pound the following harvest. If we put a 1.5-inch fish out, that might be £1.25 pound, right? And then another year down the road, that could be £2 difference. By the time they're C4, you could have £8 C4s from the smallest fry through to like 13, 14 pound C4s from a 6-inch fry. So, but again, Mother Nature throws a curveball. We have a hot summer, cold summer, so it balances out. So over 5-6 years, they normally end up about the same size, no matter what they've been through. So
I've got an unpopular opinion that I can't find anyone.
I knew we were going to have one, Ben.
So got loads.
No, absolutely. We all have.
I'd be interested. No one's ever talked me around to the idea yet, but when I was growing up looking in pictures of Carp Talk, and you could flick through the pages and say, oh, that's a horseshoe fish, that's a Yateley fish. It was almost like fisheries had brand because they were known for having a certain type of fish. Do you think now with commercial carp farming that we're almost getting so everybody wants variety, and they're almost becoming so generic that when you scroll through social media, you don't know where the fish have come from? Almost fisheries have lost brand as such. No one agrees with me on that, and people like variety.
I get what you mean. Yeah, like Oxfordshire carp and
absolutely, but Lower Berryfield used to do a very distinctive type of fish, and you had. Well, I know Tony Campbell does some very obvious fish that his.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Or do you think we're not? Maybe it's at a point when we get the market becomes so saturated that these little niches will have to pop up to make people more potent in.
And if someone wants to go down that route, I think the problem is for the niche market is, yes, it allows you to scale a business to a certain level, but there's not many. If you phoned suppliers now, and you wanted a 20-acre lake stocked with say C3s, there's probably half a dozen suppliers that could supply that number of fish, Ben.
Yeah.
So yes, like you've got the likes of Ross Osborne at I Heart Carp. He does the little scaly beauties. Like, so there are those sort of artisan carp farmers, I suppose you call them. And a lot of people go, well, like, you produce fish of all sorts, but if I wanted to, Ben, I could go through the whole batch and go, right, I'm going to pick all the scaly ones, put them over there, and then I'll do plain ones. I'll do zip linears, I'll do leathers in the pond and stuff like that. But then, and people go, well, we'll pay you more for one of them, like for the zip linear. And it's like, well, then I don't sell the plain ones. And we know the plain ones grow biggest, right? There's no denying that. Right? The genetics are getting better, so scaly fish are growing well. Yeah. But from my point of view, I like to see a fishery with a diverse range of fish, like scale patterns. So that's what we target, is we try and do a bit of everything. And yes, I suppose we are mass producers, but believe me, there's still a lot of passion in terms of like I want to see a bit of everything. So if a customer phones me and I'll sell 2 C3s to a customer, a lot of people go, like, you've got a minimal. It's like, not really. One C1 is pushing it. I'll sell 5, but they've got to go on the courier. But I want to be someone phones me up, and I'm starting to see a bit of a sort of trend away from the scaly fish.
Right.
I think because everyone is starting to realise that generally bigger fish are plainer ones. Right? And so that's our approach to it, is we try and produce, and we get customers come down and pick. So I think a venue could still be branded in terms of what it has in there by picking the right fish from the right suppliers. Really. Like, I think there's still some classic.
I guess it's hard to, because it's gone full circle, and everyone was slagging off the CEMEX of old, where they were big, plain, horrible things, and now there's nothing about people want them.
Getting lots of phone calls like the harrows, like people like, I want harrows. And it's like the C3 batch this year. They are really plain. There's some zip linears, some commons. Right? They are phenomenal frame fish, but I know I'm going to have people go, oh my God, I want scaly ones this year. Right? And I'm like, well, I haven't got them. Right? So the year class is coming through. We've got the variety again. It's just that year we had a bit of a problem with the fry pond with the scaly ones in, and the natural spawners or self spawners hadn't done very well, so we couldn't even filter those. Some of the best scaly ones out of that. Right? So we end up with a very plain year class and some amazing common. There'll be monsters. Right? But peas in a pod, I don't know. Right? But would I want to go and fish a lake that's got 30 fully scales in it? Probably not. Right? No. Because I like a fully scaled to be the target. Right? And I think that's certainly, we went that way over the last 20 years. Everyone pushed scaly fish. Right. And then all of a sudden, probably 8-10 years ago, I had people phoning me going, have you got anything without any scales on? I'm like, oh, hello. Like, and thankfully the harrow fish were coming through. So it's, we try and cover all bases, Ben. I suppose as a business of our size, it'd be very hard to do a niche thing without. So I don't want to, like, to me, a plain mirror is worth as much as a zip linear. I don't want to be going, well, these are more expensive because they've got more scales.
No, so it just made me wonder if there's so many people coming into, so much more suppliers appearing every year, and it seems when a market becomes so saturated that these niches are the way to penetrate to supply something.
Like 20 years ago, Ben, like I said at the start, we timed it absolutely perfectly. Like, I don't think it would happen like that now because the market is so saturated.
That was one of my questions. Is the opportunity now what it was back then?
There is, because, well, I'm in my 50s now. Some of the people that farm, like, there's a lot of people retiring, like, that used to do some fish, and 2 or 3 people, like fish dealers and stuff like that. That I think there is always an opportunity, Ben. Right? But we were incredibly lucky when we met the farmers where we were in Sussex. So I couldn't afford to buy. We've got 200 acres of land. I couldn't afford to buy that in Sussex. I was a lecturer at an agricultural college. So yes, there's the opportunity, but you've also got to have the right pieces on you at the right time. And with your operation, you've expanded from the farming side, and obviously doing the food and stuff like that. It's about seeing an opportunity. It might not be a massive one, but if you do 2 or 3 of those,
I think, the way I've got room to expand, but I feel like if I get to the position on such a scale where you feel like, shit, I need to sell some fish now.
Yeah.
It almost gets to a point where am I going to enjoy selling them? And I want to be honest and be close to my clients knowing that they're going to do well there. You don't want to be going, right, okay, as I say, we've got to sell them. And I don't want to get to that point. And I feel like there's enough good suppliers like yourselves that are doing it at scale. And you think, do I really want to be... I quite like being small because it's enjoyable and I get excited about going to the ponds. But
I'm not arguing with that, Ben.
Would you say it gets after a few weeks into the harvest? Does it start to get like, crikey, we've got a long way to go yet? And it's,
it seems like it's never ending at times. But going out delivering fish to customers, it's like having Christmas Day every day for 6 months. Right?
Yeah.
And yes, as much as I'll hold my hands up, January, February, I've done 30,000 miles, like before that, delivering fish. And I'm going, I just want to get through this now. Yeah. Like, I'm functioning. But when you turn up and guys literally older than me are virtually bursting with excitement, right? And I've seen 250,000 carp during the winter, at least. And I'm looking at it going, it's nice, but it's like, but their level of enthusiasm is infectious.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
And I pick up something and go, I'm not that. And they're like, oh my God, that's mind blowing. I'm going, actually, look at it. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Right? And I do it with my fishing. When I catch a fish, I look at it and go, yeah, it's amazing. Or when I'm on the farm, I look at it and go, yeah, it's a really nice fish. But when I take pictures and sit down at home with a coffee and I'll try and take pictures when we're delivering with the customers. And you look and go, cool, bloody hell, I never spotted that. Right? And that's the time I sit back and go, actually, right? And it's that buzz. And like I said about earlier, it's getting pictures of fish that we stocked at £10, at £65. You just go, I remember the day as clear as yesterday, we stocked that fish in 2012. I remember it because we had to photograph 300 fish that day. Right. So it took a while, but I can virtually remember that fish going in. The brain's not quite as clear as it used to be, but again, and like you said about being close to customers, I've got a lot of customers that are friends now, absolutely, right? And I've always based our business on my phone. If someone phones me and they're a previous customer, I've got their number saved. Right? Yeah. And I had a guy that hasn't bought fish for 15 years off his phone, and he went, still got my number? And I went, yeah, well, why not? Why wouldn't I? And so, yes, and I like to think, it's about customer service, because that side of life has disappeared in a lot of its convenience, drive-throughs, there you go, there's your food, go. It's for a lot of our customers, whether they're spending £50,000 or £500, that's a lot of money to those people in that situation. And I want them to have a really good experience. Right? So if they phone me and I don't answer, I want to phone someone back within 24 hours, or the same day. If they email, I'll answer emails at all sorts of times, but I want, if I'm ordering something from someone, I want to know now. I want the answer, or I want the product on the way, or knowing that, and that's the way I want to be. I hear horror stories about suppliers going, I phoned them 4 weeks ago, I've never had a phone call back. And I'm thinking, Jesus, if it's 48 hours and I'm sat there pulling my hair out, and thinking, oh God, I need to phone that person. And so I think there is the opportunity without a doubt, Ben, but you've got to focus on customer service, doing something slightly niche, unless you can expand at the rate we did, which again is may not be possible for a lot of people. But then you've got to look at it's the same. How big the team is. If you're employing people, that adds another dimension to things. We're very lucky. We've got a great team of guys now. me and Simon feel that we can trust them to run the farm on a day-to-day basis. So that's taken the pressure off us a little bit.
Yeah.
But
how is that? Because a lot of people that you speak to that have tried partnerships, it seems like it's rare to see them last as long as yours.
Me and Simon, we've had some humdingers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even Simon will admit that. We, like, at the end of harvest, like, fuses are short, like, days are very short. Like,
we want to see that on social media.
It doesn't happen, like, not many times, thankfully. I think we, like, because we sort of operate.
You want to have like contrast in...
Yeah, I do a lot of the office sales, deliveries, that sort of stuff. Simon manages the harvest, and I'll go, I want this, and he'll go, I can't do that, and I'll go, well, I need this. Like, so it's normally something like that. Like, but when you're scheduling 300, 400 deliveries during the winter, for all of us, right, it's never going to be perfect because Mother Nature throws a spanner in the works. It rains, so we can't get the fish out, so we've got to move deliveries. And then they can't take them that next week, and it's you're just putting more balls in the air. Right? And to be honest, considering 20 years, we've done all right. I think.
You still enjoying it, Viv?
I do. Yeah, I'm excited. To see what the fish have done, because we see them every day, but they're muddy ponds, so you get a glimpse of them. You're like, oh, I think they look right. The C1s are great because they're under the feeders, but I'm looking forward to getting back out on the road. Certain things I'm not looking forward to.
Absolutely,
like, having a numb arse, like doing. I've got 3 runs to Scotland this year, so that historically we'll do that in a day. We'll go up and back in a day, so it's a 20-hour day, and then go to Yorkshire the following day. But you've been there, Ben. You've been netting all over the country and delivering fish, and there is a level of anxiety, but if you care about something, that's when you get anxious and worried about something. If you just breezed in and went, whatever happens, I think there'd be something wrong in my mind anyway. So,
thank you very much for coming on the podcast and supporting what I'm doing this. I know you're a face of the industry that everyone looks to as one of the warm faces of the industry.
Thank you, mate.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking some time out to come and speak to us.
It's been fantastic. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Have a good harvest.
Will do.